Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And today we're going to meet one that certainly involves the urban centers of Oklahoma City and Tulsa, but really a lot smaller communities too.
Yeah, indeed. We're going to have Paul Ryckbost from Guernsey and Company come talk to us about a concept that he has phrased as the 15-minute city. That caught my eye. Jones PR was kind enough to put me in touch with Paul, and he's going to come tell us what he's talking about the 15-minute city.
Paul Ryckbost, today's guest on The Verdict, and we'll be right back.
Right now, 6 feet can feel like a long ways away. But from 6 feet, we can still smile at each other. From our doorways and our stairways, from opposite sides of the street and opposite sides of the country. Through fear and frustrations, we can remind each other that we are still here for each other. Because we can still smile at each other. And we're not going anywhere.
Military service ran in my blood, starting from my father, which joined the Navy, then on the Chickasaw side, my uncle, which served in the United States Army. I'm Benjamin Espinosa, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy, and I'm Chickasaw. I went to the Secretary of Defense's staff at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., which ultimately led to becoming a combat support technician for Naval Special Warfare, specifically SEAL Team 10. I think to be proud and to love your tribe, to love being Chickasaw, you also have to love being American. You also have to love everything that America stands for. Equality, perseverance, professionalism, and power. I want my family to know that their father is a good person, but also feels that he has an obligation to the country and to love this nation. Anything worth having is worth dying for. The military and the country owes me nothing. I owe it everything.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Well, as we talked about in the open, Paul Ryckbost is our guest today. He is Vice President of Energy and Utility Solutions at Guernsey. By the way, I mispronounced Guernsey's name. It's properly just Guernsey, not Guernsey and Company. And I apologize to all my Guernsey friends for that. He did his undergraduate work at Calvin University in Michigan, got his master's degree in urban planning at the University of Michigan. He has been in Oklahoma City since that time. He worked for a number of years at the city of Oklahoma City on urban planning matters and joined Guernsey in 2012. He is both an engineer and an urban planner. He manages comprehensive urban planning projects for a number of clients of Guernsey, and from all information we can get, he does a very fine job with it. He provides infrastructure assessments as well to many clients of Guernsey. Over the 10 years he's been working here, he's been active in many civic and cultural activities and comes very highly recommended to us. And Paul, we're really pleased to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Paul, when I think of Guernsey, I think of architecture and engineering, but what you do kind of expands the definition of what I would think that Guernsey was most involved with. Explain what it is you do.
Yeah, my area of work is kind of an integrated form of consulting for all parts of a community. We'll take it from developing not just what buildings you want to see in the future, to developing the infrastructure that allows you to carry on your daily life. So in my role, I get the fun part of being involved in kind of every aspect of it. I get to touch a little bit of architecture. I get to play with urban planning and help with long-term comprehensive plans for entire cities. I get to work with universities, which are, in a way, just mini cities. And same thing with all of our military clients, a lot of military installation-related planning that we do. I get to kind of play with it all, and it's a big, fun sandbox.
Does that include internet?
A little bit.
Sidewalks? I mean, are you talking
Sidewalks,
infrastructure?
everything, and this was kind of bantied about last year. What is infrastructure? Infrastructure really is everything that helps us with our day-to-day lives. I mean, you could go as far as the soft side of daycares, in which we've seen with people celebrating the new announced Primrose coming to downtown Oklahoma City, potentially at 13th and Western. It is a huge need. I know a friend of mine said she had a baby in September and is still 30th on the wait list for one of the downtown daycares right now. So, infrastructure, it goes from that to the hard stuff, the roads we drive on every day, the internet that we get, broadband and fiber out in the rural areas. Electricity is a huge part of it. So it goes so many different ways. Infrastructure is so big.
Well, you just finished, did you not? Or you're still working on a project that involved both the city of Oklahoma City and Tinkerfield.
Yes. So
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So the Air Force and the Department of Defense have a program called Utilities Privatization. It's been going on since the mid-90s. And Guernsey's been a big part of the Army side. We've been consulting with them since 1995 on how to do it. We had the opportunity to help the city of Oklahoma City on the other side propose to the Air Force to purchase the water and wastewater systems as part of this program. So starting in 2014, and then we submitted a proposal to the Department of the Air Force in 2015 for Oklahoma City to buy the systems. We spent a lot of time evaluating what needs to happen, all the replacement needs, economics of the deal, and finally worked through it, negotiated, and the City of Oklahoma City, as of November 1st, 2021, is the owner and operator of water and wastewater at Tinker. So,
how does the relationship between the federal government and its control of Tinker and the state government in its relationship to the city, how does that integrate?
It's tricky.
I bet it is.
So the city will have to follow all of the federal purchasing rules, things like that, employment issues, but it gets to make all its own decisions about the future of the infrastructure on base and what's best for water, wastewater, maintenance, things like that on base. And the Air Force, of course, will have its say. We want to maintain the mission, want to make sure that nothing is down for too long on base. You want to have the utilities up and running at all times. Tinker is an incredibly important military facility. It is constantly busy. There are so many different missions, things going on, that you want to make sure that you have water service especially, and wastewater service at all times. Water is used from everything from the office spaces, obviously, but over to aircraft maintenance for cleaning and painting airplanes, things like that. So it's incredibly critical to have a good system out there.
Let me follow up on that just a minute, if I may. For that to work, that's got to have been thought to be a good deal for both parties.
Correct.
Why is it a good deal for the Air Force? Why is it a good deal for Oklahoma City?
So traditionally, the Department of Defense has had a hard time funding utility assets and utility maintenance and coming up with the funds to, say, replace a water line. When you want to repair an airplane or replace a water line, what do you think gets the funding? So the purpose of the utilities privatization program is to find strategic partners. Sometimes it's municipalities, sometimes it's a private company that has expertise in operating systems. And they provide the capital and the know-how to really maintain a system. And then there is an economic analysis performed with every deal to make sure it's a good deal for the government. And they compare what the government should be spending, not what they are spending, but what the government should be spending to maintain a good system, and then what the offerers are proposing to spend on the system. So in Oklahoma City's case, it went through 2 rounds of bidding, and then it was found to be the best option would be to go directly to Oklahoma City. And we still had to prepare the proposal and show them how much we thought it would cost.
Now, you were involved in that?
Correct, yes. So that was one of the first. I was a year into Guernsey when I got tasked to be part of that program, so I really never left the city in a way. I got to still spend a lot of time with a lot of my former coworkers and friends at the city, and we're still going. A few people have changed hands over there, but there's still a few key people on the project. So it's been a long time coming.
Now, wasn't former city manager Jim Couch in the water department?
He was at one time. So he was. He got briefed a few times when we were doing the original work. But things like we have a new utilities director in the meantime, new city manager now. So it's a lot of new people we've got to had to help them understand the benefits too.
I think I interrupted you and
That's
didn't
fine.
let you finish about why this is a good deal for the city.
It's a good deal for the city because it ensures that the base is going to have proper utility operations. And OG&E is another partner of the bases where they have purchased the electric system and they own and operate the electric system. So we have two strong, secure utility partners in Oklahoma, making sure that the base has a strong utility system so that in the future, if there was another base realignment and closure action, BRAC, it's a lot harder to BRAC a base that is in really good condition versus BRAC a base that needs a lot of work.
And presumably with long-term infrastructure contracts that they've got to live up to.
Yes, exact.
Yeah, the Pentagon, through my experience, really appreciates those bases which have good relationships with their local governments.
Yes.
And that's one of the factors when they consider BRAC closures.
Yes. So I was able to hear Ms. Stephanie Wilson, the current base civil engineer, who used to be Colonel Wilson, who was also the base commanding officer for a few years. I heard her speak on Friday, and she said that was one of the things when she became the base commanding officer back in 2015. She was immediately approached by all of the local communities, and that was something she had never seen in all of the other stations she'd been. So Oklahoma has a really strong commitment to Tinker. It's thousands of jobs, so it's a worthwhile thing.
So what's next if Tinker is winding down on that big project? Are there other bases around the state that might want to do something similar? Or
Fort Sill was actually one of the first ones that actually went through. Vance Air Force Base, I don't think it'll happen because they have a really strong contracting arm and another contractor that operates the base, and they're doing a really good job at it. But it could happen. Some of them, it's just not strategically important or strategically advantageous. Like say McAllister Army Ammunition Depot, you might not want too many outsiders working there.
So let's get to a break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about a term called the 15-minute city and your thoughts on that. We'll be right back. You're watching The Verdict with Paul Ryckbost of Guernsey. We'll be right back.
We want to reach out to every veteran we can in Oklahoma. There's somewhere around 340,000 veterans here in Oklahoma. And half of those are still unaware of the benefits or don't know how to go about getting them.
We help guide the veterans through the VA system. It's a giant maze, and we kind of help guide them through that maze. So our job is to try to help the veterans get everything that they're legally entitled to. There's just a special place in my heart for our Vietnam veterans and our World War II veterans, as well as any veteran, and that's why I do the job.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank #2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. We're visiting with Paul Ryckbost of Guernsey. I mentioned before we went to break a term called the 15-minute city. What does that mean to you?
So the 15-minute city is a development pattern where you can live, work, play, and everything is within a 15-minute radius, walking or biking from your house. So you can get to your... Not driving. So you can walk, you can bike to work, get generally your weekly groceries, things like that. People used to say dry cleaning. I don't know how too many people do dry cleaning anymore after the pandemic, but you know, things like that where it's within easy reach where you don't have to use your car. I've heard it said 20-minute city down in Texas. Everything's bigger down there. But it's the same kind of concept. And you have pockets of that around here already. You know, my wife and I are really fortunate in our little spot in Edmond where we can walk to almost all of those things in close to downtown Edmond. But not a lot of people have that right now in central Oklahoma or in Green Country near Tulsa. But there's a few pockets, and a lot more can be developed that way.
Well, our cities and really western United States were designed around the automobile and the expectation that that's how you would get.
Yes.
So why is it important that the car, the automobile, not be included in the definition of the 15-minute city?
And this is where it gets a little tricky in Oklahoma. A lot of it is related to climate and ensuring that we don't push further carbon emissions. Now, we are going to see so many more EVs coming out in the near future, and there's an amazing lineup. And that will help, but it still is congestion. A car is a car for size. And some of the EVs that they're coming up with right now are massive trucks and other things too. So it's not going to help with your space. So it really does kind of help with the space issue. And then also just encourages healthier habits. And being able to walk somewhere and then having a mission. I'm not the type of person that just wants to go for a walk. I don't like that. I don't like just walking around my neighborhood. But if I'm going to walk to the store or walk to the, you know, I live near the garage. If I want to go get a burger, there's one way to walk it off is to literally walk there and walk home, or walk to church, or walk the kids to school. You know, I have an actual mission. And right now, with our current development pattern for most of the United States and other Western countries, is you only walk if you have to, or you go for a little leisurely walk. And there's no, it's not built into your daily psyche where I'm just going to go walk to the store.
Right,
and come
it's
back.
not transportation.
Right.
It might be recreation, it might be for exercise, but it's not transportation.
Correct.
The way we think of it.
Right, yeah.
Let me ask you, is downtown Oklahoma City itself, and what most people would include in a circle around downtown, is downtown Oklahoma City a 15-minute city?
I wouldn't say so yet. And we've seen even the small grocer that was subsidized through rent subsidization by the landlord couldn't make it in the current market down there.
With all those downtown apartments.
Even with all
and
those
everything.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
Part of it's because people are just built to use, I need to go to Walmart. They don't think I can get most of the stuff at this little corner store. It's kind of a psyche thing, so it needs that change in that respect. But I would say if you lived at 13th and Walker, that's a different story. It could be considered a 15-minute city in that area, in Midtown, because especially with the redone Homeland and a few other, even Brahms actually has a really good selection of a lot of your daily grocery needs. You can walk to most of those destinations, or you can bike. And the same if you lived in the plaza, kind of the same way. So some of those mid-scale neighborhoods, I think, is where you really see the 15-minute city in kind of Western cities.
How does the autonomous vehicle play into all of this?
It's going to be longer coming than people realize. Once they do come, though, it's still only going to help the people with the higher income and people who are already kind of mobile. It'll help some cities develop, and you might see circling fleets, but if you own an autonomous car, you're still going to have a parking garage if you go to work, or a place to park it at home. So it doesn't really help build any health resiliency or any alternative modes of walking or biking and getting your exercise. So I see autonomous fitting a certain niche someday down the road, but it's not going to fit the niche I think a lot of people are expecting right away. It's not going to be your Uber right away and a few other things.
Is the massive, well, I say massive, the significant investment in mass transportation, the streetcars and the embark bus system and all that sort of thing, is that helpful toward a 15-minute city or harmful?
It's incredibly helpful if it's designed correctly and if the frequencies are correct. in my opinion, it's better to serve more frequently along a few lines than it is to serve a lot of lines, but only have every half hour or 1 hour service, because that's not really efficient for the everyday user. If you have every 7 minutes a bus is coming, you're much more likely to want to take a bus. But if it only comes once an hour, you have to plan so much of your day around that. And if you have kids or if you have a job that requires you to go back and forth, it's really hard to do. So if you invest appropriately in service, I think is where you really see the benefits.
So we've talked quite a bit about Oklahoma City. How familiar are you with Tulsa and how it's experiencing on this issue?
Tulsa is doing a few things differently and other things kind of the same. They have quite a few more bike lanes and protected bike lanes downtown and expanding out. They've already initiated their first bus rapid transit line. So they're going further in some respects, but they're similar. They've had Jeff Speck come in and do a downtown study, but they haven't really done anything with their one-way street patterns, which I think would help them greatly. Oklahoma City was way ahead of Tulsa on that, but there's still similar struggles.
What's the effect of the gathering place in Tulsa on the resiliency?
Well, it adds a focal point for people and a sense of pride in that area and a place to gather and bring people. You know, we want to bring people in. So it's a really good way to kind of highlight how bringing people together in community can really increase the desire for a community and people wanting to be in Tulsa.
Which size cities out there are most engaged in these topics?
I'd say in Oklahoma, it's actually your smaller, mid-sized communities that have a little bit more flexibility and can adapt to changes faster. Edmond is a great example with its current planning director. He's been able to do a lot of different things and help bring in, say, Streeteries downtown Edmond has been very successful since the pandemic of bringing people in, taking a couple parking spots here and there, and showing how you can build street life and bring people out and get people to want to come downtown, and then changing speed limits downtown and no right turn on red, a few other special little things that as a smaller town you get to experiment with those things, and it's harder in a big city. So yeah, I think that's a really good example. Other places similar to that across the country, or brand new neighborhoods like the Wheeler District, where they are able to control a lot more in their specific development. That takes a lot of effort though, and a lot of time.
Well, the commitment, and we just have about a minute left, the commitment to try to become a 15-minute city, that's got to come from government, I would think, because they control so much of what goes on in that regard.
Yeah.
What kind of commitment do we have in Oklahoma from a state government standpoint?
From a state government, I would say it's kind of neutral at this point. They're going to let the cities do what they want. From a local government standpoint, there's a lot of political will, and now it's just taking it forth and changing some local laws and encouraging future development to be a 15-minute city. Not just saying, oh, you can do that, but encourage and make sure it's built that way in the future.
He is Paul Ryckbost with Guernsey. Thanks so much for coming on our show.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
It used to be okay in teachers' lounges. It used to be okay in maternity wards. It was okay in sporting arenas, college campuses, and office spaces. But now that we understand the deadly dangers of secondhand smoke, that's not okay anymore. So why is it okay that thousands of employees are exposed to it every day at work? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's protect hardworking Oklahomans. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, Each child deserves all the quality, assistance, and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. We're wrapping up the show with Paul Ryckbost of Guernsey. He's had an opportunity to work on some really interesting projects. The Tinker, kind of, I would call it privatization, but actually they're actually working with the city of Oklahoma City, which privatizes a lot of those services. So he's had that, and then this 15-minute city concept, I think, is raising eyebrows across the country.
Well, he really is on the cutting edge of urban development, and it's a good thing he's with Guernsey because they do an awful lot of that, and he's quite good at it. Yeah, his 15-minute city concept, or at least the one that he told us about, seems to be a plan for the future. We're not there yet.
More information about his company at Guernsey.us. That's Guernsey.us. And we have a website, theverdict.tv. You can log on and tell us about a guest you'd like to see on a future episode or a subject you'd like to see us take on. And we've had a lot of good guests in recent, very topical things. And I know Robert McCampbell's coming on next week.
Yes. Next week he'll be on to talk about this confounding topic of sentencing and what does it really mean in the criminal context.
It'll be on The Verdict. We'll see you then.